What's up everybody, this is Ven bringing you another MOC Spotlight where we take apart what you build. And for today's episode we'll be taking a look at Makuda, the Mad King, created and posted to our message boards by our very own IllustriousVar. Here to conclude what I would call the unofficial month of Makuda. Well, sort of conclude. So you understand it might seem a little unfair to you guys that this is the third TTV MOC featured this past month, so I will review another Makuda MOC next week and conclude this whole month of Makuda with that instead. Now, as most of you are already familiar with, my reviews involve a point system that is based on three fundamental attributes: the overall appearance of the MOC, the build of the MOC itself, and the concept and ideas behind the MOC's creation. Each quality will amount up to 5 points, leading up to a final score that will be determined at the end of the episode. And please remember that everything I say will be based on my opinion. So let's get this started. Man. You know, immediately I gotta say that this is a very impressive sight to behold. We got the evil Makuda himself seated upon this dark, shadowy throne. I mean, dang, dude, it's just so imposing and full of character. Like, at first glance, I can already tell that this is supposed to be an important character. An important and evil character at that. Real quick, let's take a look at the throne, which by itself looks pretty dang cool. It's nice to see that it doesn't really rely on the Makuda model itself to look interesting. I mean, it's just so full of detail and has all these dark and evil looking ornamentations with the skulls hanging around everywhere and this sort of spiky motif it has going on. Like, this chair just looks like it belongs to a pretty bad dude. And if I had to make any sort of criticism, would be that the chair seems a bit thin, especially when you're looking at the upper part that's supposed to support the back of the figure. It just seems very paper thin up here, like there isn't really much holding it up, which for a model that I would say looks very realistic, seems pretty unrealistic. But hey, it's not really the focus of the MOC anyway, because when you actually throw Makuda up on there, it looks fine. Like, you wouldn't even notice this at all, especially with Makuda looking all so comfortable in this throne. Like, this looks perfect for the figure. And the figure itself is also a pretty solid design. He is a bit simple, especially compared to the other Makuda models we've seen, but he still looks great. Like, the design is just so elegant and smooth, and just has this nice silhouette overall. The colors are really well distributed. It's nice to see how well gold, purple, and black are working all well together as per usual. And the placement of these colors is pretty on point. And most importantly, while I did say that this character looked a bit simple, he still has a fairly well-defined character. He almost has this sort of royal look to him. And I would say that's because of the armor choices and the color placement, the color scheme, just kind of working in conjunction to give me that impression. And now my only complaint about this Makuda model would actually have to be this chest armor up here. It doesn't really work for me. While every other part of his body is well armored and well rounded in shaping, this portion looks vulnerable and very gappy. And I just don't think this piece in particular really works as chest armor, unless it was for a smaller frame. Now, aside from looking all sleek and sexy, Makuda here also appears to be a very solid action figure. His build is mostly custom, but it looks built to be played with. You know, it doesn't really seem like he's got any loose ends that are sure to pop off if you picked him up or something. He definitely looks stable all around, which is great because he's also got a substantial amount of articulation, so you can pose him however you wish. Even the shoulder armor has some articulation, and it looks as though this was done to prevent hindering articulation in the arms. But yeah, look, he's even got fingers and toes. He's got toes, posable toes. Again, it's just so well done. Then we have the throne chair thing that doesn't do anything. But that's okay because it's not supposed to. It's merely an accessory for the action figure. Something to throw in when you want the figure on display to make him look extra cool, just kind of sitting there on your desk. And I could definitely categorize this as a play feature, as it is the one part of the MOC that you could say is actually interactive. That said, there is no actual function built into the figure or the throne, but hey, does it really need one? Not when you got all this creativity, literally and figuratively, built into this MOC. But now I feel that we've talked enough about what literally went into the build of this MOC, so I think it's safe to move on to what ideas were figuratively put into the MOC. Now, just like the other Makuda MOCs I've reviewed this past month, hence the phrase Month of Makuda that I mentioned earlier, this MOC was built with the intention of being entered into LEGO's Makuda Rebrick contest, in which builders from all over are challenged to create their own interpretation of the big bad Makuda from Bionicle's story, namely the form he takes on after putting on the mask of ultimate power. However, VAR's MOC was not actually built with the intent of fitting that sort of scenario, because in the end he actually created his own little backstory for this Makuda MOC, which I'll sort of get into in just a second, but I could still see this MOC fitting that scenario anyway. I mean, first of all, this design looks incredibly fitting for Makuda's character as we've gotten to know him over the years. He looks evil, megalomaniacal, and powerful. He straight up looks like a conniving supervillain, just sitting there chilling on his throne trying to come up with some evil plan. And this design, all in all, just seems like a very realistic transformation for the Makuda character as well. It shares the same color scheme, you got the gold and the purple, and we've also got the same mask. Like, it's obvious it's supposed to be the same character as Makuda in G2, while also invoking this sense of the character that we got to know in Bionicle G1. Or, well, at least that's what I'm getting from it, but what VAR actually did have in mind was that he wanted to make his build of Makuda just appear less like a giant evil Hulk monster and more like a conniving evil mastermind. An idea he actually proposes in his own little backstory that also explains why Makuda appears so royal and why he's sitting on this throne. Because really in this backstory, Makuda is this evil and powerful tyrant who doesn't really throw himself into his battles, he makes other people battle for him. So really he's relying less on physical strength and more of his position of political power. And that's a pretty cool idea, and VAR pulls it off just as he needs to. And when you take into consideration just how many big, hulking monster types of Makuda MOCs that we've seen entered into this contest, just working off of this concept alone already makes this MOC all the more distinguishable. One that truly stands out, and one that is quite deserving of this big, bad, evil-looking throne. And now, keeping that all in mind, let's move on to the scores and get this video wrapped up, shall we? In terms of appearance, this MOC receives a 4.5 out of 5. It's not the most unique design, but it is very well done, and overall just has a great sense of character that you don't really see too often with these kind of MOCs. In terms of the build, this MOC receives a 5 out of 5. We have a decent custom build here from Makuda himself, but VAR's creative capacity when it comes to building truly shines when you just see Makuda together with this big throne, because then it feels more like an actual action figure, one that is built for both playing, posability, and showing off. And then, in terms of the concept, this MOC receives a 4.5 out of 5. It's clear as day what VAR intended to do with this MOC and how he wanted it to look, but I had to dock a point because I feel that the MOC relies a little bit more on the throne than Makuda himself. Having them both together looks great, and obviously this is how the model is meant to be displayed, but considering that the subject of the matter is still supposed to be Makuda, I do think that there could just be a little bit more to him, as he is again fairly simple. And with all that said, we can now add up our final score, which amounts up to a 14 out of 15. Regardless of Makuda's fair amount of simplicity, all in all we have a very creative model that is not only well built but very effective in conveying the ideas that VAR had going into it. So great job, man. You did good. Hope to see more out of you, and I wish you luck in the contest. By the time this video is out to the public, we may actually have the results already, so we'll see. And for those of you who may or may not have entered the contest but still would like a bit of recognition for your creativity, please consider this. Post to our message boards at board.ttvchannel.com under the LEGO Creations category. And there you are free to post your own pictures of your own creations and earn yourself a very high possibility of being featured on the MOC Spotlight sometime in the future if I deem it interesting and or creative enough to be given the attention that I feel that it deserves. So I hope to see you there. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.